Today is going to be a review of sorts. Bear with me, I get nervous every time I get in front of the camera. Unfortunately, I wish I could just be like, yeah, this is me, but it's not quite like that yet. So I wanted to pull all of the previous topics that we've been talking about and put them into this week's topic, which is going to be about visualizing the invisible, featuring The Shack. There's a movie called The Shack from somebody Young. His last name is Young, and it was a worldwide phenomenon. It's really well written. I attempted to read, I'm not much of a reader, but I attempted to read the first couple of chapters of the book, and it was so well written and so emotive in its language that nothing had even happened yet, but I could feel, just by the way that it was written, I could feel like things were getting emotional really quickly. So I put the book down and I'm like, no, can't do it. And then I watched the movie, and it was a very emotional movie, but it was a very educational movie in a good way, very godly way. It talks about forgiveness, and one of my favourite scenes in the movie is with a character called Lady Wisdom, and that was probably my favourite scene. That is visualizing the invisible, in almost like a spiritual world, having a character that embodies certain truths and things. The way that this one did it was so good and so, for me, so biblical. It basically embodied the entire book of Proverbs. Very smart. It was really good. And that's a great example for me of how to visualize the invisible. And we are taking the wisdom of life, but the wisdom of the Bible as well. We are taking that and injecting it into media. We are injecting it into the public consciousness. Just running through the week's episodes really quickly. Episode 1 was just an introduction, but episode 2 was talking about vulnerability and how important that is to encouraging family and fellowship and relationships and people serving each other's needs and giving and receiving and all that. That's vulnerability can be really important for that. Finding God. There's a part in all of us that wants to find God. If you've ever found yourself hoping for something, then you're hoping for a piece of God to come into your life. And our journey to that is finding God. Episode 4 was about Harry Potter and the spiritual world and how that is manifested. The important distinction that I made there was that the dark and dirty spirit is what we want to leave behind. We are not in it for ourselves. We are of a loving heart and pure spirit, which is of God. So we are not operating out of something yuck. We are operating and serving God, who brings all good things to us in His right ways. Some people, I feel, got confused about what I was saying there, so I wanted to clear that up. Episode 5. Initially it was just talking about the logo, but really in the heart of it was talking about creative identity. Talking about what my creative identity is a little bit, what I want to achieve and portray with this channel, and I suppose how I want this channel to inject into the mindsets to influence the culture that we're in a positive way. Episode 6 was about justice. Now that is very important. I've heard it said that God is a God of love and justice, and those are two very important needs for us as human beings, as his children. So we want to get that, we want to achieve that. And when it comes to media, we want to portray how to get that. We want to testify to the fact that it is possible so that others can hope for justice and victory in their situations. Episode 7 was fathers, feminists and gays, and likewise, if we are aware of certain truths that there's a cause and effect to things, and what we're seeing now is can actually be explained going back if we zoom out, so to speak, and see somebody's life is in regards to where they've been and what they've had to go through emotionally and developmentally and psychologically and all that, then we can be understanding. And again, as far as injecting that into media, our understanding of that can be crucial to dealing with those subjects responsibly. In a way, it can lead by example so that others can see how to treat those people in that situation. So that leads us to today's episode. God tells stories by visualizing the invisible because he wants us to understand things. Take metaphors and similes, for instance. Metaphors and similes in themselves will be visualizing an invisible concept. It's the easiest way of summing things up in an idea that is catchable in a way. That's why Jesus spoke in parables, so that the physicality of it can represent a truth. And as creators, as storytellers, as people that are in the media, that principle is what we're operating out of as well. The ability to tell stories that have learning opportunities in them and morals to them are really a fantastic way of not just spending time with each other, but teaching and we all love stories. The question for us is, in our hearts and in our crafts, how are we visualizing God? And as we do visualize it, we can bear witness. I point out The Shack because that is one of the best movies that I've seen that is very definitely from a perspective of God, but that is done in a way that is of high standard and high production value. I want more of that. I might leave it there. I might even end a season there, but that is plenty of stuff to think about. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient with me. If you're passionate about what I'm passionate about, then thank you for sticking around. One of my hopes for this channel is that it can be a place to connect with people who are passionate about the same thing as me. May the Lord bless you and keep you, may make his face shine upon you and give you peace. And much love. My head, my heart, my hands are unto him and unto you, and be blessed. Cool. See ya.